Welcome back to another episode of New York State Sports. I am Pacific University Brothers Sports. We're back here with you once again. Episode 51, the Bernie Williams episode. And we have so much to get into today. I don't know how we're going to fit into an hour plus. We're going to try. NFL is back. We'll look ahead to Giants Vikings week 1 on Sunday. Huge game for the Giants to set the tone right for the 2024 season. Jets get set for their matchup with the Niners on Monday. The Yankees lose 2-3 of the Cardinals, but still on top of the division. There's one guy that hasn't gotten called up. Why did that? Figure that out. The Mets have won 5 straight. Had a game back for a playoff spot as they are surging at the right time. With 5 and the rest of their schedule for the last 25 games. Good weekend in college football for local. Syracuse, Rutgers, and Army all roll. We'll talk Liberty bouncing back on the West Coast. We'll talk Red Bulls and NYCFC. Maybe a little bit of struggle for the local soccer team. We'll talk U.S. Open, American storylines galore in the second weekend, some major upsets in this crazy tournament that we've had. I have show announcements coming up as well to get set for the rest of the NFL season. It's all coming up next here on New York State Sports Night Sports Radio, direct feed for all of the sports. We will see you. And of course, welcome back to the episode here of New York State Sports Night, Sports Radio, direct feed for all of the sports. Ricky Keeler back here with you. First show in September. Hope you all had a great Labor Day, a great holiday. We are live. We have a couch. That's really cool as we get settled here in the new state. But we've had a lot of fun along the way. We'll have a special show announcement coming up for you real shortly. But before we talk about that, and we talk about the Giants season, I want to remind you, of course, follow us on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok, at IE Sports Radio. You can follow the podcast if you miss any portion of this show, or you just want to hear me talk again, or you want to see if my predictions turn out right for the NFL slate during the week. Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, all that fun stuff. We also have pages for every show. So go to iesportsradio.com/New York State Sports. You can follow the show on Twitter at NYStateSportsIE, or you can follow me on Twitter at Rickinator555. Always happy to hear from you. And of course, throughout the show, please feel free to comment here on YouTube. Would love to hear from you. Get your predictions on this week's game. Get your predictions on the season. How do you think the Giants will do? How do you think the Jets will do? We're going to do more Jets probably next week in terms of previews, because starting next week, I know we've moved the show a lot. Bear with me. I'm trying to find the perfect time for these shows now that my work schedule is a little bit different. We're going to go to Mondays at the same time because I want to be the first to kind of recap the previous week's NFL slate. We'll do more of a Jet preview on Monday. We'll do a little bit today, but I want to do more of an in-depth Jet preview on Monday, being it's a Monday night game. And we'll hopefully be doing a post-game show for you guys after Jets 49ers, either Monday night or early Tuesday morning. Recapping that epic game. So I think that game deserves a little more of a recap slate because you'll get Giants Vikings recap on Monday. But before we preview the Giants game, of course, we want to hear from our awesome sponsors that bring some great things to the table and help us give you the great programming that you see here on a daily basis. And we also have some cool new shows in the Detroit, Northern California, and Oklahoma area as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back in a minute to preview the Giants, but now some brief words from our sponsors.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm. Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And of course, thank you to our awesome sponsors for checking out the show. Happy to have all of you aboard. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Of course, the NFL season is back in full swing. Of course, want to get into some of the cool things going on here in the comment section. Dive into that. Ralph, thank you for chiming in as usual. Some fantastic stuff going on over there. Of course, check out the Injury Report later today, 5 o'clock Eastern. Should be a lot of fun. And our newest host in Detroit, Motor City Grit, which you can catch every Monday, 7 Eastern. Anthony is here. So welcome to the IE Sports Radio family. Happy to have you aboard as well. So let's talk Giants. And of course, I think let's get into their biggest roster personnel move first. And I would think that's Adoree Jackson. The Giants adding him back into the mix. They had him over the last couple of seasons, and they needed some help at corner. They remember we talked about last week during roster cutdown. they got rid of a lot of veteran corners. Like this is a young secondary, a lot of rookie, second, third year players. They need experience. Jackson provides that. When you got Gunnar Olszewski also dealing with some injury issues, they needed a punt returner. So Jackson's going to help both on defense and on special teams. And that's going to go a long way for this team because they're going to have to try to get some big plays with those good two units while this offense tries to figure some things out because this offense is a work in progress. It's because I think it's probably the biggest unknown with this team. Although one receiver, which we'll dive into a little bit, seems to think it's the best it's looked in a long time. There's still a prove it kind of phase to this Giants team that we still haven't seen just yet. It's interesting to see how that pans out. So they will start their slate Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox against the Minnesota Vikings at home. It's a game we've looked forward to since the schedule has come out. And it's a toss-up for both these teams. We said it last week. Minnesota was, I believe, a 1-point favorite when we looked at this game last week. As of today, and of course we're still a few days removed from kickoff, it's about a 2-point spread. Minnesota's favored, but I think this game's pretty much a toss-up because I look at this matchup, and to me it's a battle of prove it quarterback. Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones. Which quarterback has more to prove in this game? Because I think both have their question marks. Sam Darnold, of course, taking over with J.J. McCarthy, who I think would have won the job if he had stayed healthy. He gained some experience with San Francisco, at least backing up Brock Purdy. Of course, he returned to MetLife Stadium where he had some really rough moments with the Jets. I think he's still seeing some ghosts as is. But for Daniel Jones, it's his first game since having that ACL surgery. How is he going to pan out? I think both these teams are going to be real interested to see. You're not going to get a complete answer on either quarterback. But if Darnold has a great game, it goes a long way for Minnesota. And I think he's got the better weapons when it comes to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Two top receivers, even though TJ Hockenson starting the year at least out for this game, which I think is a big deal. Which quarterback goes a long way in sort of not maybe completely answering their question marks, but at least putting the question marks in the back burner for now. That is the biggest intrigue in this game, is which quarterback kind of eases the concerns of their respective fan bases. Now, as we mentioned, there is a receiver that has found a lot of hope in this offensive line, and that's Darius Slayton, who, of course, is a veteran of this group. He's in his late 20s. And he said this week to the media that this is the best the offensive line has looked for the Giants in 6 years. You can't argue with that. Again, we still have not seen a regular season game to really answer those questions fully. But at the same time, they made those moves with John Runyon, Luminor, and they've added to this group enough veterans into the mix. Of course, Andrew Thomas, who has really evolved as one of the better left tackles in the league. It's come a long way. You need to see it in game action. But I think any Giant fan would tell you that in terms of depth, this is the strongest the offensive line has looked in a little bit. And that's a big thing. The X factor to me in this game, I'm going with the running backs. When you're looking at both quarterbacks trying to answer questions, it comes down to me to which running game controls the line of scrimmage and controls the clock. And both these teams have new running backs. The Giants with Devin Singletary, and you've seen a little bit of Eric Gray in the preseason. You've seen Dante Turbo Miller. What does he do? But I think it's really a Singletary and Gray kind of thing. Tyron Tracy, of course, before his injury scare in preseason, another guy to look at. But Singletary gets to be the primary running back, something he really wasn't in Buffalo. I mean, when you think about it, he was splitting time with James Cook or splitting time with anybody with the Bills. Now he gets to be the focal point with Big Blue. And for Minnesota, they brought in a division rival. They brought in Aaron Jones from the Green Bay Packers. Now, they still have Ty Chandler in the mix, but Jones is going to be the guy that primarily controls the ball because we saw A.J. Dillon kind of beating Aaron Jones' carries in Green Bay. We'll see what Aaron Jones has anything to prove in this contest. In terms of the prediction, I think low-scoring game, defensive focus. Minnesota has added a little bit to the linebacking core with Blake Cashman. I think both these teams have some secondary issue concerns, even though Minnesota has Harrison Smith. kind of anchor that. But I think it's the Giants pass rush that does just enough to get this game done. And I think it's a must win for the Giants. If they lose this game at home in really one of their winnable games, it could lead to another really long season for this group. So I have the Giants winning 23-20. I think it's just one of those games where defense is going to maybe a turnover here or there determines this game. It's going to be Big Blue with the victory. We already have a lot of comments over here. We have a lot of cool people in. Alden from our Arizona show is here. Sarah Rodriguez is checking out the show. Anthony says Daniel Jones, he feels is gone. I don't disagree with that. I think the Giants picked. Look, if they have a bad year, they're going to pick in the top of the draft. And they're still pretty good quarterbacks. You watch the college football landscape this past week. I mean, Shador Sanders can be the one everybody wants, but Carson Beck is a player to keep an eye on. So the Giants, I think, are good. This is a trial mode. And that's why I think Daniel Jones is going to be real interesting to see what happens with him going forward, because I think it could go a long way to seeing what the future is for this franchise. So I'm not completely shocked if Jones is gone, but he has a chance to prove it, and he has a chance to prove it starting on Sunday. Now let's talk some Jets. Now, again, we'll do more of an in-depth preview of the game on Monday's show. Again, Monday at noon. So we'll have more. We wanted to do more in-depth Giants today as opposed to Jets. But the big news out of Jet camp is still no sign of Hassan Reddick. Well, if he doesn't show up today, which it sounds like he did not, he will likely be out for week 1, start losing game checks, and this is a disaster for everybody involved. I think Reddick more so because he's just hurting himself, hurting his wallet. That's the guy that kept saying that he wanted to come in to make a difference. Well, he's made a difference. He's just not here. That's the difference he's making. But Robert Saleh said today to the media that they got enough on that pass rush, and I think they did. Now, losing Bryce Hufford in free agency, losing to the Eagles. But I think that front seven for the Jets is stronger. I think their secondary, difference with the Jets and Giants, the Jets know what their secondary, led by Sauce Gardner, what this back of the defense can do some things. We saw that last year. They kind of fizzled toward the end of the season, but of course, for all the quarterback issues the Jets had, you understand if the defense kind of took a lap. This defense is still really good. So I think if Reddick misses the early portion of the year, I think they'll be fine, but it's still kind of a concern that he hasn't come into the fold just yet. And I think it's a problem for both Saleh and Joe Douglas. I think Joe Douglas deserves some blame here for either believing him at face value that he was going to come into camp, or the fact of the matter is not getting the deal done once you make that trade. Yes, I know they didn't give up a lot to get him, but you still have to make that happen. I think that's a little bit of a concern on the Jets side. And you look at the other side with the Niners, they got all their guys back. I mean, Brandon Ayuk was out for a training camp. He's back in the mix with a new contract. Trent Williams this morning gets a new contract. He'll play probably on Monday. Christian McCaffrey was hurt. He's going to play on Monday. So the Jets still don't know what they are, at least from a roster standpoint. And the Niners kind of know what this group is. There's not that many question marks going into this game outside of the Super Bowl hangover. As Dreyer Sports is here on Northern California newest host. He'll be on, I think, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, if you want to check that out. He says the Niners are going to remind the Jets that they're still the Jets. I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think the one thing with the Jets to take a look at is which offense shows up. And I was watching a video with Bill Belichick breaking down the Jets in his new coach podcast, part Underdog Fantasy, talking about how with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson they have these matchup nightmares. I think the question with the Jets is which offense shows up. Remember, last year it was 4 plays in, and we didn't get to see what this offense can be. Now you have Aaron Rodgers, at least expected to play a full season, but coming off the injury himself, and an offense that didn't do much in the preseason. So this offense not doing much in the preseason, how exactly is this team get ready to go? And when their opening weeks are going to feel like preseason. Remember, Saleh said they changed up that strategy. He played Rodgers at the end of last year's preseason. They chose to go a different direction. You haven't seen anybody. And the Jets have really treated the preseason essentially like it's preseason outside of the depth guys. So which one shows up, I think, is interesting. And then the X factor for me is going to be the Jets corners against the Niners wide receivers. You've had a lot of trash talk in the beginning, at least early on in the offseason, between Shararius Ford and Garrett Wilson. Shararius Ford saying basically didn't know who Garrett Wilson was. I'm sure Wilson has heard that and used it as motivation throughout the last few months. And you also have Sauce Gardner with Brandon Ayuk and a Niners offense that you want to take away Purdy's weapons, even though Devo's there, George Kittle's there, Juwan Johnson played a big, Juwan Jennings played a big factor in the Super Bowl, could have won MVP last year. The Niners are deep at wide receiver, even though right now they're not going to have Ricky Pearsall. I'm glad he's okay from what happened with him over the past week. That was a scary situation. But I think you look at this matchup, if the Jets secondary can keep the Niners receivers from getting open, you have a pass rush that can get to Brock Purdy. Because Trent Williams, yes, he's a veteran, but he hasn't had much time in camp. And I think if the Jets can get some pass rush early, set the tempo with their defense, get Rodgers some short field, kind of get the offense into a rhythm. Because I expect the Jets to come out a little rusty. I think anybody would. That's where I think this pass rush, we talk about the Giants pass rush doing it, I think they have to think more of an impact than the Jets do. That's going to be something to watch. And as Dre points out, yes, the Niners do have Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd was the one that hit Aaron Rodgers last year that led to the injury in week 1 with Buffalo. So that's also a factor. I would lean towards San Francisco's team. I'll make a pick on Monday. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets won. Maybe surprised. But I do think this will be close. I think if the Jets can keep this game close, win or lose, it's a good sign. I don't think they have to win week 1, as I said last week. I think the Giants have to. And the Giants kind of have to set the message that they can't keep starting off flat. The Jets start off with a loss, but Aaron Rodgers is healthy and plays well. There's at least a little more optimism. And yes, it's part of optimism in Jetland, but they would have that. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. And as Dre says, yes, Aaron Rodgers' fact he hasn't played is a big thing, and that's where I said the rust from this offense in general is going to be something to watch. Can they settle in and get in there early is going to be something to watch. So let's take our first break. We'll come back. We'll talk baseball. Yankees kind of reeling a little bit. They did bounce back in Texas last night, and the Mets have won 5 in a row ever since the sky started falling on their season out west. They are back in the mix. So stay tuned. We'll talk a little bit of baseball coming up next on New York State Sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Galise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate, diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold, and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Galise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And of course, there's going to be a lot of baseball talk and some wine talk on the Let's Wine About DNB Sports Show over the next few weeks as the baseball pennant races start happening. As we're back here on New York State Sports and IU Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Ricky Keeler back here with you, and let us talk some baseball. Let's start with the Yankees, who have kind of limped into the last few weeks. This is a team that has had an easier schedule. This is a team that has had chances to pad if they at least lead, and they haven't capitalized. They finished off August in a rough way. They lost 2-3 to St. Louis. Will Warren has been not very good since joining the rotation and the Luis Heel injury. Fortunately, it sounds like Luis Heel is going to pitch this weekend at Wrigley against the Cubs, which should be a fun series, especially for Adam Karnick and the Chi-Town Weekly show, because the Cubs are back in the mix in the NL wild card. So that should be a really good series out there. Of course, the wind might blow out and get Aaron Judge a few home runs, but the problem for the Yankees is they're not playing good against teams they should be playing good against. You even saw Sunday's game. They got down 7-2. They rallied to tie the game, only to lose the game 14-7. It was like there's no football team anymore, but it's like the St. Louis Rams playing the New York Giants. And that can't happen. And I think the big picture issues with the Yankees right now, and look, every team in the American League has flaws. We've seen it, which is why the Yankees are in first place still currently. Like the Orioles haven't taken advantage of, they get the lowly White Sox this week. So if the Yankees out in Texas, they have to sweep to stay in first place with about 20 games to go. That's not shocking. The bigger issue with the Yankees, though, is what the heck is going on with Jason Dominguez. Of course, September 1st is when baseball teams can expand their rosters to 28. And everybody was kind of looking forward to seeing, okay, where is Jason Dominguez? Is he coming up? He's killing the ball in AAA. You're getting home run highlights left and right from this guy who made an impact last year before having to undergo Tommy John. And the Yankees do bring back Anthony Rizzo, but then they bring up Duke Ellis. Now, who in the world is Duke Ellis? Duke Ellis is essentially if you've looked at past World Series champions, the Terrence Gores, if you will, guy you bring up to pinch run in any situation, kind of use his speed to steal a run in some of these late games, and you understand why. But the problem is, and you look at the Yankees, and there's been a lot of writers that have kind of taken a lot of people have accused the Yankees of service time manipulation. If Jason Dominguez gets fewer than X amount of at bats, he can qualify for Rookie of the Year next year. If he does finish at least in the top two, the Yankees would get a draft pick. So they're kind of banking on a long-term future. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but then the other issue came out, and I think it's even worse than service time manipulation, if that ever was a thing. The problem you have is this team or this front office. I would have been say Aaron Boone, because Aaron Boone had said yesterday that when Jason Dominguez is up, he's going to play every day, and he is going to get up here at some point. But the issue is they believe too much in Alex Verdugo and Trent Grisham. They believe too much in their veterans, and their veterans haven't shown really that they can do the job. Alex Verdugo has been terrible over the last 3 months in the outfield. He hasn't hit. He hasn't done anything really the Yankees have expected him to do. And there's low expectation. Look, they brought him in on a 1-year deal. He shouldn't be perfect. But when you have a future guy that can take an impact, especially against lefties, and Yankees are awful against lefties, you need him in the mix. And then you have Grisham, who off the bench, not known for his offense. I mean, this Yankee team needs an inflection of youth and kind of an injection of excitement, and they're not getting that. And I don't see why it behooves the Yankees to keep Dominguez out there for up down in AAA for so long. You have a chance to not only win a championship, which is what this team's goal is. Why are they taking the long term picture when you traded for Juan Soto to try to win a world championship, especially when you're trying to hold off the Orioles, get that AL East spot, maybe even get the number one seed, and have home field throughout the American League playoffs? Like to me, that's the bigger issue. What are the Yankees trying to do? Are they trying to win now? Or are they trying to play the long game? You can't do both. It's great they want to try. They want to try it, but to me, Jason Dominguez should be here already, and it's kind of a joke that he's not. And at some point, they have to cut ties to the veterans. Verdugo hasn't done it. Grisham hasn't done it. DJ LeMahieu is still 2 years left in his contract. He's terrible, batting under 200. Their belief in veterans can only take them so far. Their kids have to be the ones that get it done. And this game, the baseball is trending in a youthful direction. You have to start believing in your farm system to kind of make the impact. And they're going to in the future because they paid so many players big money that their farm system is going to have to carry the day in a lot of instances. So we'll see if Dominguez comes up, but to me, that is really something to keep an eye on over the next week or so. When he does come up, can he make that impact? He's going to be in the middle of the order when he does. He's that impactful of a player. Now, the Yankees have gone more to a new look bullpen. Scott Efros has come up. He didn't look good Sunday at all. Ron Marinaccio is back. Ian Hamilton, I think, had a setback in his rehab, which is something to monitor. Lou Trevino is a player still to keep an eye on. The Yankees going to make changes to this bullpen. Luke Weaver gave a home run last night. That game looked a lot closer than it should have been. Garrett Cole left in the seventh with a calf cramp, but all signs look like that he's going to be okay, which is a big sigh of relief because he looked really good last night. And a player that has looked good at the top of the order is Gleyber Torres. I mean, he's got almost a 400 on base over the last 2 weeks. He's starting to find his swing, and ever since he was benched, he's kind of turned a new corner. And if Torres can get on and give more run opportunities for Soto and Judge and Stanton, who have all had 25 plus home runs, Stanton hit his 25th home run last night. That's going to go a long way for this group. If they can get a consistent top four, top five going, and then you throw Dominguez in, and Anthony Rizzo, I think, has looked pretty good since coming back from injury as well. He's had a couple of good games at first base, kind of stabilized that position a little bit. They're going to be in decent shape. So the Yankees are, as I said, they're going to play Texas the next couple of days. Drewski probably wasn't happy last night. Although it was a fun game to see Anthony Volpe against Jack Leiter, two high school teammates, going at it from Del Barton, New Jersey. That was a fun spectacle. Yankees finally got to Leiter in the sixth inning. They got a 5-run inning out of it, kind of pulled away. They get Texas, they get Chicago, which is not going to be an easy series at all. Tonight's matchup, which we'll share with you in just a second, Carlos Rodon, who was not good his last start. Those are his 15th win against former Yankee Andrew Haney. And then tomorrow, Marcus Stroman against Nathan Eovaldi before the Yankees head to Wrigley Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon. So all 2:20 Eastern first pitches on Saturday. So as the Yankees kind of stumble their way through mediocrity a little bit, because think about it this way, they're a half game ahead of the Orioles, and as I said, the Orioles are going to play the White Sox. So in hindsight, you've got to try to win these games. The New York Mets are finding what they've kind of been finding their niche over the last couple of weeks. They went on the West Coast, scary road trip, looked like their season was in the balance, and they finally found a way to get things back on track. And I think that's a good sign for this group going forward, where they had the collapse against Diamondbacks. Edwin Diaz gave up the big home run to Corbin Carroll. But ever since then, they won the final game against Arizona. They swept the White Sox, and thank God they did, because the White Sox are awful, 108 losses. Which begs the question, if you're a Mets fan out there, do you want this White Sox team to break the 62 Mets loss record of 120? Do you want to be that team that is known for that record, or would you want another team to break it? Because it looks like the White Sox are going to break that record. They are a mess. They are awful. Even with Garrett Crochet starting off as well as he did the other day, the Mets still found a way to win that game 2-0. And then last night, 7 innings from Luis Severino, Nets got ahead of Brian Baylor and the Red Sox early. I still don't get why they didn't play a Labor Day game in the afternoon last night, but they get a 5-1 win. Francisco Lindor has been everything the Mets have hoped for. And he's basically, I think if the Mets get into the postseason, it's going to be really hard not giving him MVP. Even with Ohtani having a 50 home run, 50 stolen base kind of season, which it looks like he will, he doesn't play defense. And really, when you have Betts and Freeman, you look at the Mets, Lindor has carried this offense at times this year. Remember, he won Player of the Week 2 weeks ago, and he's been red hot. You take that April away, he's had kind of like Aaron Judge. He has been a much different player. But you've seen different Mets step up as well over the last few weeks. Brandon Nimmo's looked better over the last few games. And the guy that got the deadline, Jesse Winker, starting to play well with normal playing time. Over his last 23 games, he's hitting 344, 368 on base, 516 slugging. Lindor is like 333 over his last 27. So Winker is doing some things. And David Stearns has had a good trade deadline, all things considering. They didn't make the big moves, but Winker's done a nice job. Paul Blackburn, before going on the IL, looked pretty good. Phil Maton, who got the save last night, got under 2 ERA since joining the Mets bullpen. He has found some things. And look, Mendoza's going to manage these games differently. You've seen Edwin Diaz pitch 4 times in the last 6 days. And that's okay. Look, you got 20 games left. If you need your closer 3 days in a row, he's got to pitch. The rest in the offseason. The Mets, being as close as they are, have to play these games as if they're playoff games. Because they can't afford losses. I mean, the Braves are playing Colorado this week at home. No disrespect to Mile High Musing. Mets got to win to keep pace because you can't expect the Rockies to beat the Braves. You can't expect the Marlins to beat the Braves. And the Mets have I think, the toughest schedule of any playoff contender left. Look at their last 10 games of the year. Phillies, Braves, Brewers. Who knows what Philly and Milwaukee will ultimately be playing for in those games, but those are still tricky. Now, the Mets could get bullpen pieces back. They did lose Daniel Nunez again, which is a big blow because Nunez was a big multi-inning kind of guy. Kodai Senga said yesterday that if he can get back, he would be willing to pitch out of the bullpen. That's a big Swiss Army knife for the Mets, and Christian Scott could be available as well. So when you throw Senga and Scott into that bullpen mix in a big series, such as that Atlanta series at the end of the month, which whoever wins that series would own the tiebreaker. Right now it's 5-5 between the two. That does help. And I saw a tweet from Mesmerize this afternoon that if the rotation holds, barring rain delays and such, and we're still a few weeks away from that series, it would be Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, and David Peterson against the Braves. The Mets' 3 best starters, who have all looked really good. Like David Peterson, after the Mets had that heartbreaking loss, comes out, throws a really good game. Manaea was dominant Sunday. You have a good 3 guys in the mix. Can McGill or Blackburn or any of these other guys kind of just do enough for this offense to carry them? We'll see. But you look at that 10-game road trip that we said had to define this Mets season, and they went 7-3. And really, when you look at the 2 of those losses, the Sunday collapse in San Diego, and then the loss to Arizona midway through that series, they should be at 9-1 on that road trip. But resiliency from Carlos Mendoza's club is what really pulls the weight for this team, and that's why they've been so successful. That's why they're in the mix. So the Mets will, again, take on the Red Sox tonight. Cutter Crawford against David Peterson. Peterson goes for his 9th win. And then Tanner Houck against Tyler McGill on Wednesday night. Mets will have the day off Thursday. And then they will take on the Cincinnati Reds over the weekend. Winnable series again for the Mets. They don't have many winnable series left. They do go to Toronto beginning of next week, and then they go to Philly next weekend, their first of 7 matchups with the Phillies down the stretch. That, by the way, that's not at Philly, those 10 games. They post Philly for 4. People are going on the road to Atlanta and Milwaukee. We'll take one more break. We'll talk some college football. We'll talk Liberty. We'll talk soccer. We'll talk tennis. We'll do a little bit of a grab bag of sports over the last 15 minutes or so. You're listening to New York State Sports Night, Sports Radio Direct Feed for all the sports. We will wrap up episode 51 after this short break.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. From where we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU, we cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back. Final segment here of New York State of Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports, episode 51. Ricky K here with you in the house to talk some college football. Week 1 in the mix, the locals all in action. And an impressive game from Syracuse. The score, Ohio hung around for a little bit. Syracuse won 38-22 in the home opener at the Dome. But the big performance was Kyle McCord. He threw for 354 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 of them to Trevor Pena. This is a Syracuse team that's going to really, their season's going to go on how McCord looked. And for a guy that looked hesitant at times at Ohio State because of what was over his shoulder, Ohio State had so much depth at quarterback. McCord now is in the mix of a place where he's the guy. He doesn't have to worry about getting benched when he makes a bad pass. And they didn't get the greatest run game from LaQuint Allen, but that's going to get better over the course of the season. I love the fact that McCord threw the touchdown right at the end of the first half, gave Syracuse a 17-9 lead at the break. And you're seeing a really strong passing game from the Orange. And McCord is probably, again, that was Fran Brown's number one guy in the transfer portal, is to get that kind of a player. And you look at the ACC, who outside of their top two looked really good in week 1. Miami had that dominant win over Florida with Cam Ward, but you look at Florida State laying 2 eggs to start their season. Bill O'Brien's Boston College team was really good last night, and Clemson was awful against Georgia. Now, anybody would look bad against the Bulldogs. They've won, 40 straight regular season games, but when you look at the 2 of the projected top teams in the ACC putting up duds in week 1, that's got to bring some optimism. The problem for Syracuse, they took a little bit of hit on the defensive side. The top linebacker, Marlo Wax, going to miss at least 6 weeks with a lower body injury. That's a big concern, but Syracuse does have some depth at linebacker. It's just Wax is one of their better players. And that's just something to monitor over the course of the next couple of weeks, is how Wax's loss will impact this defense. Because you got a big game coming up Saturday, noon Eastern, on the ACC network against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech isn't ranked, but they're 2-0. They beat Florida State, of course, in Ireland in week 1. Last week, blew out Georgia State. And I think this is the game that's going to be determined by the ground game. Georgia Tech with Haynes King, mobile quarterback. You saw the impact they had against Florida State, who's been awful against the run. And you have a Syracuse team that would like to get its ground game going to help its quarterback. So both these teams can be determined by the line of scrimmage. But an early test for Syracuse, if they can get a big win at home, get to 2-0, get an ACC win, McCord keeps playing well, that's going to lead to good things for this team season. So it's going to be a fun one to monitor at the Dome Saturday afternoon to the Syracuse team is capable of putting up on the biggest stage. That will be a fun one to watch. We go to the other side and we go to Rutgers. Now, Rutgers took on Howard, and no shock there. I mean, look, Rutgers is going to crush Howard. That was not something that essentially was going to be a negative impact for this group. Like, I think everybody knew Rutgers was going to be in a good position. But they did get some good performances all around. They got a pick six, which helped. Kamenon guy on the ground was really good. 19 carries, 165 yards, and a touchdown. Ethan Kaliakmanis threw for 3 touchdowns, no interception. I think that was big for this Rutgers team. Getting some little bit of offense through the air. You didn't have to do too much against Howard. But it wasn't from start. Rutgers dominated the game from the opening kickoff. So that was one. Greg Schiano gets a win. They're not going to get tested much this week. They're hosting Akron. That's a noon kickoff Saturday. Akron hung around with Ohio State for about a quarter and a half, and then the Buckeyes won 52-6. So don't expect Rutgers to really have too much trouble. They should get to 2-0, and then they have a week off before they go to Blacksburg, take on a Virginia Tech team that just lost to Vanderbilt. So Rutgers, I think if they could get things right their first month, they could have a strong year. And Marcus, how you doing, my friend? From the Gloves Off Boxing Show, some good stuff there. So Rutgers should be a fun story to monitor over the next few weeks. Let's talk some Army. Army was taking on Lehigh this week, and they did a really good job running the football. They blew out the Mountain Hawks 42-7, and their ground game was excellent. 56 carries, 375 yards, 6 touchdowns. Army does what they do. They run the football. They control the line of scrimmage. They dominate. And you look at this fun fact about Army's Week 1 slate. There were only 4 teams this week that scored every time they got in the red zone. They scored touchdowns. Texas, Arkansas, Georgia Tech, and Army. Now, much bigger test for Army in Week 2, as they will head down to Boca Raton to take on Florida Atlantic. That is their American debut, their American Conference debut. Noon Eastern, CBS Sports Network. Army actually right now a 3-point underdog, but again, if the Black Knights can run the football, control the line of scrimmage, do what they're capable of doing, I mean, they can pull off a win, then they will host Rice in their home American debut in the following week. Some other local scores from Week 1, which we will dive into. Pull that up for you. Here we go. Colgate lost to Maine 17-14. Fordham lost to Bowling Green 41-17. Long Island hung there with Albany, but they lost 27-21. Marshall blew out Stony Brook 45-3, and Wagner with a blowout win over Lynchburg 46-7. This week, some games to watch. We talked about Syracuse Army and Rutgers. Colgate is at home to Villanova. Fordham's at Central Connecticut State. Long Island goes to TCU, so it's named that score for the Horned Frogs. Marist hosts Georgetown in their season opener. Stony Brook is home to Stonehill. The same Lehigh team that got blown out by Army, they are hosting Wagner. And Monmouth will play Lafayette. Monmouth lost to Eastern Washington 42-27 last week. They will host Lafayette in their home opener for this season. That's your Week 2 college football slate. I'm excited for that Syracuse game. I think it's going to be so much fun to see what this team can do this season. Let's move over a little bit to the WNBA, to the New York Liberty. Of course, that's been the team that, in between the NFL starting and the playoffs in baseball that we're going to be talking about, the Liberty are going to get some focus. They had a rough one in LA last week. They blew out the Sparks a couple weeks ago. Sparks gave them some revenge, but then they go to Seattle and they beat the Storm, a really good team, 98-85. Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu combined for 57 points. Really dominant performance. The Liberty have some tough games down the stretch. When you look at the month of September, their next game is going to be Thursday against Seattle. That's, again, a good team. They have 7 games left, and a big one Sunday, 4 Eastern on ESPN. So you're done watching the Giants, flip over to that game. They're going to be hosting the Las Vegas Aces. They beat the Aces every time this year. So Las Vegas is going to have a chip on their shoulder to try to win that game. Liberty still play the Lynx again. Lynx have been one of the hotter teams in the second since the Olympic break. They played Dallas twice, trying to get in the postseason. The Mystics are trying to get in the postseason. The Dream are trying to get in the postseason. So really tough games to have for this Liberty team. But they're 27-6 right now in terms of trying to clinch that 1 seed in the WNBA. They lead the Sun by 2.5. It's really 3 when you look at the tiebreaker. So that does help the Liberty a little bit. The Lynx are 3 back. It's really the only team standing in their way of that 1 seed. If the season had stayed, they play Chicago in round 1. Chicago is tied with Atlanta for the 8th seed. Indiana has moved up into the 6th spot. They don't have to worry about playing Caitlin Clark in the first round. I think no team wants that the way she's been playing. They've been red hot to fever. So something to keep an eye on there. But overall, good things from Liberty going forward. Moving on to some soccer action over the weekend. Rough one for NYCFC. They just keep blowing those second half leads. They took on Columbus. Remember, they played Columbus tough in League Cup, end up losing in PKs. And this time around, just another second half collapse from this group. And you wonder when they're going to actually get it together. They score in the 4th minute from Adrian Martinez. Columbus then scores twice, once in the 17th minute, once in the 58th minute to lead 2-1. Mansa Bakrar scores with 4 minutes left to tie it. But then 2 goals from Columbus in stoppage time. And a chance to get a point on the road against the defending MLS Cup champions goes to waste. You can't have that. Especially when you're trying to get into that top 4 in the Eastern Conference. So a rough loss from NYCFC and a rough loss for the Red Bulls, who were really good at home this year, and they end up laying an egg to the Union 2-0. Union scored twice in a 15-minute stretch to open the game. Red Bulls can't recover. You clearly can tell they're missing Emil Forsberg in that lineup. That's something that really will be something to monitor. Can they get Forsberg back down the stretch? But right now, not looking good for the Red Bulls. NYCFC is off this week. The Red Bulls will host the Sporting KC in that one. They are the favorites in that game. Red Bulls actually haven't played Sporting KC in a couple years, so that'll be a fun matchup. One more sport to get into. We're going to do a little U.S. Open action. And, of course, second week in New York. A lot going on, but a lot of upsets. Carlos Alcaraz loses in the first week. Novak Djokovic loses in the first week of this Grand Slam. You had yesterday, a couple days ago, Coco Gauff, the defending champ, losing to Emma Navarro for the second straight slam. Navarro beat her at Wimbledon. She beats her at the U.S. Open. So a lot of you don't have your traditional players in the mix, but it's still going to create for a fun week. Now, right now in action, Navarro is taking on Paula Badosa from Spain. Navarro took the first set 6-2, but Badosa is up a break in the second set. So that should be a fun one on Arthur Ashe. And then after that one will be a really good one on the men's side, because with Djokovic going out, and that sets up the bottom half of the draw for the men. Taylor Fritz, the top American, takes on Alexander Zverev. Those 2 men at Wimbledon, Fritz ended up beating him. So now Fritz gets the home court. It's a day match on Ashe. We'll see if the crowd is into it. And then later tonight, Francis Tiafoe, who had a great 5-set win over Ben Shelton in a good American round 3 match, which should have been at night on Ashe, and it wasn't. He'll take on Grigor Dimitrov, who upset Andrei Rublev earlier in the tournament. Dimitrov has beaten Tiafoe 3 out of 4 times head-to-head. But remember, Tiafoe feeds off that crowd, feeds off that energy. Night matches on Ashe, I think, are his thing. And it's a golden opportunity for all these players. The chance, if Fritz and Tiafoe can both win tonight, it guarantees an American male in the final, which hasn't happened. Remember, American male has not won a slam since Andy Roddick in 2003. And that's a golden opportunity because you saw last night, top half of the draw. Really, I think the winner of tomorrow's match, Yannick Sinner and Daniil Medvedev, is going to make the final. Sinner beat Tommy Paul, another American, in straight sets last night. Paul had some chances early, lost the first two sets via tiebreak, but Sinner prevailed, dominating the third set. Paul just ran out of gas. But the winner of Sinner Medvedev should make the final. I know Alex de Minaur is a threat. Jack Draper could be a threat. But that'll be something to watch. Then tomorrow night, Jessie Pegula is in the mix for the women, but she takes on Iga Swiatek, the number one seed. That'll be fun. Pegula's looked really good this week. She's had a rough summer, but a chance to really change that, chance to win her home slam. And with Coco Gauff out, and we'll see if Navarro can get a win. She would play the winner of Zhang and Sabalenka tonight. Sabalenka's been good, but she's beatable. So maybe we see Navarro against Pegula in the final. Who knows? But it will make for a fun week in Flushing Meadows. It's always a fun week out there. And this U.S. Open is going to be crazier than a lot of other U.S. Opens in the past, especially when, again, you consider two of the top three men are out. And really, it's the first time we haven't really seen Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Murray in a final on the men's side in a while. And it just shows a different new era in tennis that you don't have those guys in the mix. But again, U.S. Open, big fan of. When we do all the local sports here in the area, remember next week we're going to be previewing the NASCAR event at the Glen. That'll be on the 15th, so a week from Sunday. So when we do our show, which again will be Monday at noon, we will look ahead to that race at the Glen. We'll do a little NASCAR previewing. I'll get some updates from some of we heard the commercial for the extra mile. I'll get some insight from that group about what to expect at the road course. But a lot going on in New York, and it's not even just the locals. You got the great events, U.S. Open, the NASCAR race. Like, look, it's the state that never sleeps, and we provide that great coverage for you of all the teams in the area and all the local events. Like, this is a fun time here in New York. I know we had a fun summer with the Knicks in the playoffs and the Rangers in the playoffs, the Islanders in the playoffs. I think about it, you got the NFL starting this week, the Yankees trying to win the AL East, the Mets trying to get a playoff spot. Pretty soon we'll have Knicks training camp, we'll have Giants, we'll have our Rangers, Islanders, and Devils training camps going. That's only going to get fun from here. And again, we got so much to fit into an hour. Maybe we'll see NYCFC and the Red Bulls in the MLS playoffs, the Liberty making a chase for a WNBA Cup. So much at stake, so much for these teams that I'm excited to see what they got. I think both, when you look at the Giants and Jets, going forward as you wrap it up, I think the Giants are around a 7-win team. I don't think they're awful, but I don't think they're that good. And I think their quarterback issues are going to be something just to monitor. The Jets, I think they're a 10-win team. I think they're a playoff team. I think they should be a playoff team. I'm not as high on them as Peter Schrager on NFL Network today said he predicted the Jets would get the 1 seed in the AFC. I don't think they're that good. Maybe they get Reddick back and they look different. But for right now, I think the Jets should be a playoff team. That's a low bar expectation for them. I need to see what this offense looks like before I start thinking this is a Jet team that can make the Super Bowl. There's just too many variables that have to go right. We haven't even seen Mike Williams that much. I mean, what does Mike Williams even look like? That's something we're going to have to see and find out. But they should compete in the AFC. And if they don't, they're going to make changes. So, fun times ahead. So, as we wrap up episode 51 here this week. Again, I like the Giants to win against the Vikings. I think this is a team that the matchup the Giants should win. It's favorable for them. It's a toss-up in my mind. And can Daniel Jones avoid making the big mistake? If he does, they'll win. If not, they'll start 0-1 and then have a must-win against the Commanders this week and Jaden Daniels. Jets, looking forward to San Francisco. Again, we will preview that game in depth more on Monday, give you a pick on Monday, and then a post-game show either late Monday night or Tuesday. So we get 2 episodes next week. One long-form one, and post-game one. That's going to be fun. The Yankees are in Texas Wrigley this week. How many home runs does Aaron Judge hit out with the wind blowing out Wrigley Field? That'll be fun. The Cubs try to get themselves hot with the Mets. Mets to have these back. They're home this weekend. Boston, Cincinnati, they keep rolling? Can they get the third wild card spot in the National League and put two New York baseball teams in the playoffs? Liberty here have a big game at home against Vegas on Sunday. That'll be fun at the Barclays. Two big Barclays matches this week with Seattle on Thursday and Vegas. You have Syracuse, big game with Georgia Tech. Rutgers tries to stay undefeated. Army makes its American debut. Red Bull trying to get back on the winning track after this home loss. And who wins the U.S. Open? Does an American male finally win? Time in over 20 years. Now, this is the drama of that. The fact is we haven't had that and a lot of who's that next one to come along. Find out later today. Win into the Sydney final, or maybe breaking into a final and get Sinner or Medvedev, or whoever comes out of that top draw. And thank you for tuning in this week. Enjoy week 1 of the NFL. Again, I'm happy to now do the football Monday. It's going to be the first show here on the football Monday to kind of break everything down. This is why we're going to this new format. Thank you for sticking around on things and live from the couch. A lot of fun. From all of us here at Today Sports and IE Sports Radio, Chris Stewart. Saying a great rest of the week. Enjoy NFL Sunday. Get back here on Monday. Until then.